record. Okay. So today we're gonna start learning about data types, variables, and operators in Python. So the first type of data type we have is strings. So strings basically represent a text, or it can also be numbers within that text. But basically, we're trying to have Unicode characters in a row. For example, you can see these examples. They're denoted by either single quotation marks, and then you have the string inside that quotation mark. So hello, comma, world is the string here. And this is the same exact string written by four different methods. So you can use single quotation marks, you can use double quotation marks, then you can use triple double quotation marks, and triple single quotation marks. These also hold other significance, as I will show you later on when we're trying to write some of our own code. And are there any questions on what strings are at the moment, or are we clear on that? Okay, I don't see any questions, so we'll move on for now. So the next type of data we have is numbers, and these will be in three types. The first type is an integer. This will be a whole number or a negative number. For example, 1 minus 130, sorry, minus 1337, or it can be minus 10, 0. Any of those whole numbers or negative integers can be classified as an int. They have the built-in function int if we want to use them. The second type of numbered data type is the float. The float will have decimal values and all the values in between the integer values that we were talking about above, right? So 1.25 is one of them, and the other two are just decimal numbers, but in scientific notation. You don't need to know these scientific notations for the purpose of this class, but I have just put these here so that you can also have the information of that these are acceptable types that can be used by floats. They use the built-in function for float. And then the third type, which will be used the least, is the complex. This has the built-in function called complex, and examples are 5j or minus 2.2j, where j is an imaginary number which stems from the square root of minus 1 if you're interested. But again, this is the complex numbers are not required, and the you will majorly be focusing on integers and floats. So is there any questions about that until now? I will be showing you like examples of these at the end. So if that is one of your questions, you can keep it in your mind. Otherwise, if there's any other questions, I would love to hear them. Okay, so moving on to the next one, we have Booleans. So Booleans are just binary values. They get, sorry, is there a question? Someone has their mic on. If you could please turn it off. Mujib, your mic is on. Could you please turn it off? Thank you.
The mic is on.
Okay. So moving on, Booleans can either be true or false, and the built-in function for these values is bool. Sorry, again, Mujib, your mic is on. If you could please turn it off. Thank you. So examples of this can be true and false, obviously, but then we have 5 greater than 6. So this is what we call a Boolean expression. These will I will also be showing you examples of later on, but for now you can know that 5 greater than 6 is false. So this will have the information false. And x equal to y, this basically checks if x and y have the same value. We will get to this as well. But if x and y have the same value, it'll be true, otherwise false. So the next thing we're coming on to is variables. Oh, and also before that, if anybody has any questions about Booleans, um, if you have any questions about this, let me know in the chat. Okay, I don't see any questions. As if you have any questions throughout my lecture, feel free to put them in the chat and I will try to answer them as quickly as possible. So variables are containers for storing data values, right? So for example, we have x, right? X is the name of our variable. We can think of it as a container, right? It's a box of sorts. And this box is named x. So that's the name of the variable. And when we say x equal to 5, we're naming this box x and giving it the value 5 inside that container. Similarly, if we look at this y is equal to 12.0, we are making another container called y, and we're putting 12.0 inside that. Excuse my handwriting, but um, if that makes sense, uh, and if that does not, please let me know in the chat. I can expand on that more. Does everyone understand what variables are? Okay, drop me a yes in the chat if you do. Okay, I see one yes. I see another yes. Okay, cool. Because you will be using variables a lot, so I'm gonna give you another minute. If you still think you don't understand any part of it, please let me know. Okay, I don't see anything, so we can move on. So arithmetic operators. So these are very straightforward. So the first one is the plus, which is addition. So 1 plus 2, this will give us the answer 3. Similarly, minus is for subtraction. 1 minus 2 will give us -1. The star is for multiplication. So 1 star 2 is 1 times 2, which is 2. Then we have the division operator. So 1 divided by 2 will give us 0.5. Then we have the modulus operator. So this basically gives us the remainder. So if we divide 1 by 2, we get the quotient as 0, but we get the remainder as 1. So the answer for 1 modulus 2 will be 1. Does that make sense? Or is anybody not clear on that? Okay. So the next one, we have the double star, which is for, okay, I see something in chat. Not clear. Okay. So the modulus operator basically gives us the remainder, right? So for example, let's try another example, right? So if we have 5 modulo 4, right? So when we do the division for this, so we do 5, we do 4, you put 1 over here, you put 4 over here, and then this gives us the remainder 1, right? Does that make sense? Can you see the annotation that I'm making? You just drop a yes if you can see the annotation. Okay, cool. Okay, so this remainder 1 that we have here, right, that is the answer from the modulus operator. So 5 modulo 4 will be the 1 down here. Does that make sense? or is it still unclear? Yes, the modulus is the remainder from division. Correct. Okay, cool. I think everyone is clear on that now. Um, okay, so moving on, we have exponentiation. So this is the double star. So 1 raised to the power 2 will just be 1, because that means 1 times 1. So if we want to do a better example of this, let me just clear this. Okay, so if we do 2, um, just imagine that's a star. Sorry about my handwriting again. So 2 double star 3 would be 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. So that's what the exponentiation operator does. Then we have the floor division operator, and this gives us the quotient from division. So if we remember, when we did 5 modulo 4, we got the quotient as 1. So floor division gives us that 1. So it will basically be an integer division. So how it's different from normal division is that the normal division part, when we do 1 divided by 2, it will give us 0.5. But when we do floor division, it will give us 0, because we're not taking the we're not dividing the remainder further. Does that make sense? Is everybody clear on that? Okay, so moving on from that, we have the assignment operators. So this is how we assign values to variables. So x equals 5 is, we are not actually saying or checking that x is equal to 5. We are giving x the value 5. So if we go back to a certain example, so if we go here, right, if you remember variables, we did x equal to 5, and that put that inside the box. So that's what assignment is. We are giving x that value, and that's done with the help of this equal to operator, which is known as the assignment operator. So we also have some other assignment operators that we can use. So x plus equals 6, this is the same as x equals x plus 6. So now if you've done math, this probably looks a little weird, right? But this basically just means that we're taking the value that was at x, we're adding 6 to it, and then we're putting that value back into x. So for example, x has a value of 5 already. When we do x plus equals 6, it will add 6 to that 5 and store that value next. So now x will be 11. Does that make sense to everyone? If anyone is unclear on that, let me know in chat. Okay, seems like everyone got that perfectly. So similarly, we can look at oh, there's something in chat. Okay, got it. So we have minus equals to. This will do the same as plus equals to, but instead of adding it, it will subtract it. And then same goes for star equals, which will do the multiplication with that variable. And then same for the division, the modulus, the floor division, and exponentiation. So all of these will work exactly the same as plus equal to, and just perform the arithmetic function that they're supposed to. Does anybody have any doubt in assignment operators? All right, so moving on. So these are some other assignment operators that personally I have never seen used in actual code, but These are there if you ever find it in somebody's code. So these are bitwise operators, and we're not really going to be dealing a lot with bitwise functions in this class. So I'm just going to skip over these. But if you do want to know more about these, I will have some links at the end so you can learn more about these. But at the moment you can just you just know that these are there, but we're not really going to be using them very much. However, the previous ones, these ones are really important, and these ones will definitely be used. Okay, so next we have the comparison operators. So the first one is the double equals. So the reason we use double equals is because we're already using single equals for the assignment over here, right? So we are using the double equals to check if two things are equal. So if we have x double equals y, basically what we're saying is x equal to y? This will be true if they are equal and false if they're not equal. And then not equal checks the exact opposite. It's an exclamation mark followed by an equal to sign. Then we have greater than, less than, greater than equal to, less than equal to. They work exactly as they look. So if x is greater than y, this will be true, otherwise it will be false, and so on and so forth. And anybody have any questions about comparison operators? Okay, seems like everyone has that down as well. So next we have logical operators. These are used between two expressions that are um, Boolean expressions, as we discussed earlier. So x less than 5 is a Boolean expression, x less than 10 is a Boolean expression. So we use and if we want to know if both of them are true. So if both the statements that are being used with the and have the same, if they both are true, then the entire statement is true. If even one of them is false, this entire statement becomes false. So, for example, if in this situation, let's say x is 5. So, 5 less than 5 is false, and 5 less than 10 is true. But because one of them is false, this entire thing will become false. Similarly, we have the OR operator. So, this will, even if one of them is true, the entire thing becomes true. So, only one of them needs to be true. If both of them are false, only in that condition will this become false. And then we have the not operator, which basically negates whatever is inside the not function. And we denote functions with brackets. When so if x less than 5 and x less than 10 is a true uh, is a true statement, then not of that statement will be false. Does that make sense to everybody? Are we clear on logical operators? Okay, so moving on, we have identity operators. So these are very straightforward. So if x and y are the same exact objects, the is operator will return true, and the is not operator will return false, and vice versa in the other situation. Does the identity operators make sense to everybody? Oh, I see something in chat. Okay, got it. So next we have bitwise operators. So again, as I said about the bitwise assignment operators, we are not really going to be using these a lot or at all. But um, I see something in chat. Okay. So these also exist. So if you use and, it sets each bit to 1 if both bits are 1, and so on and so forth. So these are not really going to be used that much, so we can ignore these for now. And yeah, so I will be sending out these PowerPoint presentations to you, and there's a bunch of exercises at the end of this. And I highly recommend doing these to sharpen your skills. It's going to be incredibly helpful before you start attempting assignment number two, which I will be discussing uh, just after we're done doing some demo work about how these variables actually work. So let's open one of these exercises and see how it goes. Oh, I think I have to share it again. Sorry about that. Okay, so we have this exercise. I'm not going to be doing all the questions, right? So if there's 7 questions in this exercise, I'm just going to be doing the first two. So create a variable named car name and assign the value Volvo to it. So Volvo is going to be a string because it is a text value, right? So we will demarcate it with uh, double quotation marks as they've already done. So we will do car name Volvo, and submit answer, and it's correct, right? Let's do another one. Create a variable named x and assign the value 50 to it. So 50 is a number value. We don't need anything to demarcate it. For example, we use the apostrophes and not the apostrophes, sorry, the quotation marks and the strings, but we're not going to be using them for numbers. We simply just write them. So x equals 50. This will start a variable called x and assign the value 50 to it. So we submit the answer and it's correct. Okay, so again, these exercises, they're very, very straightforward, and they will help you sharpen your abilities a lot. So please just try doing all of these exercises if you can. They're not required, but they will be of immense help, right? So, okay, let me just pull up PyCharm real quick. So, okay, so this is PyCharm. We're going to start doing our first Python code. So the first thing we learned about today was strings, right? So we're gonna create a new variable called hello string. So variable names have to be an entire alphanumeric sequence. They cannot have spaces or any tabs or anything like that in between, which is why I've put this underscore down here. Okay, so unresolved reference. So this is because we haven't assigned this variable yet. So we're just gonna assign the value to it. Oh, we have a question in chat. Why does my window look different? So I am using Mac OS. That might be why the window is slightly different, but it should have the same features and it should have the same things going on the screen. So what I have done is I've just cleared the main.py file. It already had some code written in it, and you can just select it all and just get rid of it and start over again. That's fine. Does that answer your question? Okay, I don't see a no, so I'm gonna continue for now. So we're gonna create a new string, hello string. And we're gonna give it the value hello. And if we want to, okay, we have something. Okay, got it. How do I get the activation code? So Charmaine, I believe what the problem you are having is that you might have downloaded the professional edition by mistake, and you need to download the community edition. We can chat more about this after class. You can stay back after class and you can show me your screen, and we can see why you need an activation code. But for now, I would just say focus on what I'm trying to do. And if you have any questions about that, let me know. So yeah, we created hello string. So to print, so to get it out on the console over here, we're just gonna do print, and we do hello string. So this will print out this string, right? So now we're going to run this code. So if you see this green triangle on top, you can just press that. That runs the code. And as you can see, it printed this out. Hello. Awesome. So that's our first bit of Python code. Now we're gonna see if we can do something a little bit with numbers. So we're gonna create two numbers, x equals, let's say 3. This will be an integer, right? And if we create another number called y and we give it the value 12.09, this is a float number. Does everyone understand the difference between float and integers? If you don't, let me know in chat. Otherwise, I'm gonna try printing these numbers out. So another thing that you can do when you're printing stuff out is you can put a string straight here. You don't need to put a variable name. So you can say, for example, um, x is, and then you can just put the variable name. And if you press 1, see, x is 3. We don't need that space. Yeah, so x is 3, right? We can do the same for y. Y is y. If we run that, that also comes down here, right? Y is 12.09. Then the third type of variable data type we learned was Boolean. So, uh, so we can say, let's say, uh, is equals, right? We make this a variable name. We give it the value x equal to y. I don't have the lower box. Oh, if you just press run, like if you just press the green triangle, it should come up on its own. So if I, right, so I don't have the lower box right now. If I press the green triangle, it comes up on its own. If it doesn't come up for you on its own, you can try messing around with the view options, and then in here you can find the various tools and hopefully figure that out from over there. If you still are not able to find it, please let me know. Does that answer your question? Okay, so we were doing is equals. So as we know, this is a Boolean expression, as we're using double equals, which is to check if x and y are equal. So x and y are not equal, right? So this should be false. Let's print it out. Um, so we can say x equals y is, and then we can do is equals. So let's see if it works. Yeah, so x equals y is false, which is what we expected to happen. So that is good. So next we're gonna try to do some operators. So x plus y, right? So if we run this, x plus y gives us 15.09. We can do print, if you want to do x minus y, so we have minus 9.09, which is again correct. So next we can do the same thing for multiplication. That gives us that very long value. We can also do division. So we do x. So we get that value over there. And we can do so on and so forth for all the arithmetic operators. You can try doing this on your own before you actually try doing the assignment. That is absolutely fine. And I actually do recommend doing this. You should play around with some values, see what different operators can do, and just be better prepared for your assignment. So moving on to the next thing we already did. Oh, we have a question in chat. Can we just print x instead of this method? Yes, we can print just x. So I'm just writing this stuff so that it comes up like this and I know what I'm writing. But if you like remove this, so for example from the x plus y, right, we just remove that and we do print x plus y, it will still do that, right? So it will still give us the value. I just like wrote that so that it's displayed better, and that is absolutely not required. Does that answer the question? Okay, cool. I think I answered that question. So moving on. Oh, okay. So moving on, we have the assignment operators. So let's say I want to increase the value of x by 2, right? It's 3 right now. I want to make it 5. So what I do is x plus equals 2, right? So print, if we print this, oh, print x, right? If we print this, we get 5. Yes, so we can do the same for minus. Minus equals 2. We'll reduce it back to 3, right? So we can keep doing that for different operators. Is that clear? What's the difference between running codes in Python console and the main path? That's an excellent question. So as he so kindly put, he or she so kindly put, we can also use the Python console to do these same things. So the only difference that I see is that when you're writing it like this, all the code runs from start to finish all together. So you can better understand where your code goes wrong if it does go wrong. You can also use this, the Python console, but I will not have any way to see the work you did, right? So we create these files and we just run all the code at once. So if we use the Python console, we'll have to write out each of these lines and enact them one by one. So if we try to use, for example, the main file that I made, if we try making that in the Python console, it will absolutely allow us to do that. And it will actually give us the print statements side by side. That gives us hello instantly. And then we can do x equals to 3 and y equals to 12.009. Then we can do x plus y, it will give us 15. So if you want to do quick maths like that, it's really useful to just assign variables and just do the maths over here. But if you do want to write proper functions, and if you uh, don't have code that necessarily relies heavily on just single line functions, and it's not for your personal use, I would use the main file. But if it's for your personal use, you can definitely use the Python console. It's almost the same. Okay, I hope that answered your question. And if you have any questions about how the assignment operators work, this plus equals to sign and the minus equals to and so on, let me know in the chat as well. Moving on to the next one, we have the comparison operators. So let's make two new variables. A equals 1, B equals 2, and then we do C equals A. So when we do C equals A, what happens is it takes the value that A has, right? But if I do A plus equals 1, right? So what I want you to tell me what will be the value for C after this line. So if I do print C, what will I get? Tell me in the chat. Anybody have any guesses? Okay, we have a guess for 2, another guess for 2. Okay, we have a guess for 1, another 1, 2. Okay, so we have a lot of different answers. Okay, so this was a trick question. So A is actually only the value of A is going to change over here. So C has got the value 1, right, from over here. So if we make the boxes, right, A, we have B, we have C, right? So make the boxes. So A will have 1, right, after this line. We're done with this line. So we're moving on to the second line. We have B equals 2. We're done with this line. Then we go to this line, right? C equals A. So C will go to A. It will see, oh, it has the value 1. So it puts the value 1 in here. Then this line is done. And then when we go to A plus equals 1, it will go to A and increase that value by 1. So now the value in there is 2. But it does not change the value that C has. So the correct answer here will be 1. Is that clear? So I have a question in chat. How do I change the terminal in VS Code to Python? So I would recommend not using VS Code for this class. We do require PyCharm so that we are consistent with everything that we're doing. If you do know how to use VS Code and you're comfortable using VS Code, you can go ahead and do that. But I unfortunately personally have never used Python in VS Code, and I would recommend you install PyCharm to work with Python. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to make this. Oh, that's fine actually. So okay, so now what I want to showcase is the comparison of everything. So if we do A equals C, that should give us true, right? So if we run this code, we get true at the end. So okay, Let's see what we get when we name not equals to C. And we run this code again. We get false because it is equal. So this statement will be false. Less than and equal to as well. So if we do A less than B, right, so this is true because 1 is less than 2. Now if we do A greater than B, it will be false, right? So that's how the comparison operators work. So we can also do less than equal to. So if we do less than equal to C, for example, right? So we do A less than equal to C, we get true. Why? Because A and C are equal, and less than equal to also includes equal, right? So the last bit of information that we discussed is the logical operator, right? So for example, we want to check if a number is either less than 3 or greater than 9, right? So we have a variable x, right? We want to check if this variable is less than 3 or greater than 8, let's say. Right? So x less than 3, this is one statement, right? So I'm going to save this statement as, oh, no, we already used y, so we can't use y. Let's make it is less. And then we make another statement called wait equals x, and then if we want to check if it is either less than or greater than, we will write the statement. So we can print this out. Is less or is greater, right? And the value of x was 3, right? So this should be false because it's not less than 3 and it's not greater than 8. So if we run this, we get false. So does that make sense to everybody? How we use or? Yeah. Okay. So it seems like it's clear to everybody. All right. Um, that's all I have in terms of lecture material. So now we're going to be moving on to our next part, which is the assignment. So this is the assignment that you're going to be doing. This will be a little lengthy, so I would suggest getting on top of it as soon as possible. And if you haven't been able to set up PyCharm till now, please email me and I will reach back to you as soon as possible. Okay, so assignment 2, we have basic financial state calculator. So your client wants a program to generate a basic financial report that users can regularly run to understand their current financial state. Right? This program should be able to store variables. So these values should be in variables, right? And when your program is run, it should generate this following report. So whatever part you see in yellow, that part needs to be uh, a, a variable, right? It should display the value that is stored inside a variable. For example, if the user's name is Akshaan, so it should say hello Akshaan, right? And same goes for total value of assets and everything else. And there are a bunch of things in here that do not directly relate to the variables that you stored earlier. So to calculate these things, you need to use these functions that have been provided to you, right? So these functions will be implemented using the arithmetic operators that we learned about today and the assignment operators and so on, right? So we want you to do that. Are there any questions about assignment two? Um, okay, I see something in chat. Yeah, of course. So the assignment two is basic financial state calculator. So the user's name, checking account balance, and all of these things, the bulleted points, these need to be stored in variables, right? Yep, I'm going over the assignment again. Sorry if I was unclear. So these are the user's name, checking account balance, savings account balance, and all of this needs to be stored inside variables, right? So as we did in PyCharm just now, we're going to make a new variable name such as user underscore name because we can't have spaces as I discussed when I was doing the demonstration. So user underscore name would be a good variable name for username. And then you will store for example, I would store Akshan in that variable, right? And then for checking account balance, savings account balance, and all of that, you can make up values and store fictitious values, right? So this can be any random values, but basically just try to make it look realistic, right? So investment account value, total utility bills. Just try putting realistic values in this and storing them in variables. All of these need to be different variables, right? And using these variables, you will put these variables into these formulas that are on the bottom of the assignment, right? And using these formulas, you will write out these values. You will print these out using the print statement as I just did, right? So you will do print hello, comma, user name, like the variable for username, right? And it will print this out. So the yellow stuff, the yellow highlighted parts, those are the parts where you will use either variable names or you will be using the formulas, right? And yep, that should help you out tremendously. Like the formulas are basically given to you. All you need to do is implement the formulas in Python. Does that make sense? Is everyone more clear now? I can go over it once more if you want. I can slow down even more. That is okay. I just want to make sure everyone understands what they're doing. Okay, I can go one more time. So um, these will be the variable names, right? So the username will be a variable name, and then in that you will store a string value, such as your own name. It can be a fictional name as well, or it can be your own name. I would recommend using your own name. And then checking account balance. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, so once you're done setting up all the variables, right, you will use those variables in the formulas that have been provided to you, right? So for example, we see that we require a total value of assets, right? Total value of assets. So we go down here, we go to the function for total value of assets. This gives us checking account balance plus savings account balance plus investment account value plus other assets value. So what you're supposed to do is you already have these variables set up, right? Checking account balance has a variable, savings account balance has a variable, and all the other two also have their own variables. What you're supposed to do is print out the sum of those four things over here using that formula, right? So over here we will do, for example, if our variables are called um, checking account balance, savings account balance, investment, and other. So we'll do just checking plus saving plus investment plus the fourth one. So that formula will be written over here. So we'll print that value out, and this will be printed out as it is. So you will be responsible for printing out the entire thing, but the parts in gray are the parts that you have to print using just the values as it is. Like you can just put them in quotation marks and write them as it is. But the yellow parts you are either variables or they are calculated using variables, and how you're going to be doing those calculations is given down below. So total value facets has a formula down below. Total depth will also have a formula down below. See, total debt has a formula. So you're supposed to use these formulas. You are supposed to put the variable values in here so that you get the value of that particular uh, formula. Does that make sense? Yeah. So how should the assignment be saved and sent to you? So this should be one file. So it can be called main.py, but I would recommend naming it something else, such as assignment2.py, and then just sending me that particular Python file, and that should be it. So sorry, yeah. So for checking account balance, we represent with yeah. So you can use A or B, but I would recommend using better labels, such as you can use checking equal to 34,000 and saving equal to 5,700, so that the code is more readable. Uh, I would not recommend using single letter variables, as that makes your code unreadable. Other than that, yes, you're on the right track. So which chapter should we use for assignment two? So if we go to the syllabus, right? Um, just give me one sec as I pull up the syllabus. Okay, so um, yeah, so we have the syllabus right here, right? So if you go down to the part, right? So we are on week two, data types, variables, and operators. So the readings are chapter 1.1 to 1.4, 2, 9, and 15. Does that answer your question? That's the required reading. So these readings are required. You should have done them before this class started. So for next class, be sure to read chapter 7, 8, and 14. And if you haven't already read chapter 1.1 to 1.4, 2, 9, and 15, read those as well, right? And assignment one was due today, but just for this assignment, I'm extending it till Monday, and I expect everyone to hand in their assignments as soon as possible. The first assignment is really, really not that hard, and you do not require the full 2 weeks for it. I believe that. So please get on top of that as soon as possible. Um, Other than that, I think we're done for the day. So you're free to leave. If you still have any lingering questions, if PyCharm isn't working for you, please stick back. But other than that, you're free to go.